All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Apologize for not having a video for a little bit. Didn't really have a great setup where I was, but I'm back at school now, back in Columbia, Missouri, and I had my 21st or 22nd birthday. I'm already getting behind myself. And I'm just usually not used to the kind of weather we're seeing. It's below 30 degrees and a lot of snow on the ground in mid Missouri in April. So I'm not really happy about that. But other than that, I think everybody is happy because we're officially kind of in the best time of year, at least for my nerdy self, because baseball has begun, basketball and hockey in their final stretch. And then, of course, we have the national championship game tonight in college basketball. Playoffs coming up soon. Basketball playoffs starting 12 days from now. The hockey playoffs start even sooner. I believe that's in 9 days. On April 11th should be the first day for that. So that'll be really interesting. A lot of fun. And probably a lot of time of just not sleeping and me attempting to be a student. But I guess I'll cover what we've kind of missed. I'm going to try and move this camera up a little bit. I'm going to try and cover at least a bit of what we missed since my last video. And of course, we're going to see what has been going on. So no NBA action today, but there was a whole lot of it yesterday. A lot of games, and another playoff berth clinching. The Portland Trail Blazers will officially be headed to the postseason. They are the 9th team to clinch out of the 16, so there are still 5 teams in the West and 2 teams in the East that have not clinched, although in the Eastern Conference with the Detroit Pistons still being 4 games out of a spot, it looks like we pretty much have the Eastern Conference set. But yesterday, some interesting games for sure. The San Antonio Spurs had a home game against the Rockets and were able to have a decisive victory. They won by 17. I watched most of the game. The Rockets were without Chris Paul, but they really weren't able to get into much of a rhythm. And I think this game was really interesting because it shows, even, of course, without the Spurs having Kawhi Leonard, you're starting to see some of the issues that the Rockets may have as the game slows down, especially as they play really aggressive defenses. And I think for that reason, no matter who the San Antonio Spurs have, they are not a matchup that the Houston Rockets want. I mean, the Rockets, I believe, are very familiar with this team, considering that they were the ones that bounced them last year. Not only familiar with the Spurs, but familiar with their ability to play without Kawhi Leonard. I mean, this is a team that is 45-32, and you look at their roster, and there just is not a lot there. So Greg Popovich is still showing that he may be the greatest coach of all time in American professional sports. I'll even go to that length because that is truly how incredible I think the guy is. And then looking beyond that, let's just take, I'm looking at the box score right now and taking a look. And granted, they didn't have Chris Paul. They're looking to be tooled up for the playoffs, but still, this is something you have to look at. 26 for 77. Like, this Houston Rockets team scored 83 points. And that's still with a starting lineup of Trevor Ariza, PJ Tucker, Clint Capella, James Harden, and Eric Gordon, who still gets plenty of playing time regardless if he's in the starting lineup or on the bench. So they shoot 33.8% from the field, 7 of 31 from 3. And, this isn't going to happen every game, especially when they have Chris Paul in the lineup. But I think it's also really notable to just take a look at the Rockets aren't going to mow their way through the postseason. I'm as much of a believer in this team as really anybody else. I think that they're absolutely stacked with talent. I think that Clint Capella has not only been one of the best defenders in the league this year, but that he's also been one of the most important offensive players, setting up the pick and roll, being somebody to really anchor that offensive unit and make a lot of what they do as far as creating open shots possible. I think PJ Tucker has had an incredible season from a defensive standpoint, as has Trevor Ariza. And then you look at their bench, which is just tooled with veterans and three-point shooters, from Luke Bamute to Ryan Anderson to Gerald Green to Joe Johnson. They have weapons, they have experience, and they have one of the best offensive players of all time in James Harden. So they are Tool. They may very well win the championship. I will not call them the favorite, though. I know a lot of people do think that they're the favorite at this point. I don't think that's the case yet. And I'm not even talking about a matchup with a healthy Warriors team. I think that this is a team that can have problems if they end up playing in Oklahoma City or San Antonio in the playoffs. And I still include Oklahoma City because you have those 3 stars. You have a guy like Carmelo Anthony who will benefit from the game slowing down. You're going to see a lot more ISO run through Melo. The Thunder are going to run more of their offense through him. You're going to see Russell Westbrook play more of a role defensively, and he is already one of the best defensive point guards in the league. You're just going to see more out of that team. I really do believe it, and you can't discredit the factor that Corey Brewer plays, a guy that does have playoff experience. So these are all things that are going to be looked at. And, this race just continues to get more and more interesting. And I'm very interested with how the seedings are going to work out in the Eastern Conference. I mean, you have Philly that's won 10 games in a row, and they're a half game behind Cleveland in the 3 spot. I mean, Philadelphia has, for lack of a better word, been on Cleveland's ass for a while as far as looking to get into that 3 spot. But Cleveland has just been able to win timely games. They've won 8 of their last 10, and they're still in that spot. So the benefit there is that Cleveland would actually play Washington. Washington looks like they'll be the 6th seed. So the 3 seed is likely going to play the Wizards in the first round, who did just get John Wall back. So that's something to look at. May not be the matchup that you want. The Sixers and the Pacers would be playing each other. So this is a time of year where you see a lot of maneuvering within the playoff teams to try and optimize their first round matchup. So are the Cavaliers maybe going to be okay with losing a game or 2 because they may rather play the Pacers than they would a healthy Wizards team with John Wall? Or, do they like it shouldn't matter, first of all. I don't think a team with LeBron James, I think they should be able to beat whoever they play in the first round. But it's interesting to see if that'll be the case and if the Sixers do want that matchup with the Wizards, or if they're going to feel better about their chances getting to the second round against the Pacers. And then you have the 2-7 and the 1-8 matchups. We thought that the top of the Eastern Conference was set, but now all of a sudden, especially after Boston's victory over the Raptors on Saturday night, that was, of course, without Kyrie Irving. Really, really impressive game from the Celtics. I mean, they've won 6 in a row and 7 of 10, and you're looking at the play that they've been getting out of everybody. It was a rough game for Jaylen Brown, but then you have Jason Tatum that drops 24 points. You have Marcus Morris that comes off the bench, plays a big role. Aaron Baines steps up for 12 points. I mean, it's the next man up mentality that has really been such a big part of the Celtics all year. And there's debate on whether teams want to maneuver themselves in the standings to play the Celtics without Kyrie Irving. But with that being said, the Celtics are, I think, 12-4 without him, if not 11-4. They've played very good basketball without Kyrie Irving on team. And this is not at all to discredit the impact that Irving has on the Celtics team. He's, when healthy, an MVP candidate and one of the league's best players and also one of the league's most enigmatic players. But with that being said, I think the most valuable player for the Boston Celtics at the end of the day is the man in the suit and tie on the bench, and that's Brad Stevens, because it's been the next man up mentality. It's been whoever's in the spot to be able to come up and really contribute for the Celtics team. And not to say that they're not going to benefit from being more healthy. I don't think that they could get past the second round with the team that they have right now. But with that being said, if I'm Washington, Miami, or Milwaukee, I'm not going to be shuffling around the standings to play the Boston Celtics, especially with the chance that Kyrie does come back in the first round. But I think either way, as long as you have the health of Al Horford, and I think what a lot of people are forgetting is that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, we view them as role players because that's what they are on this particular team. They are, the third, fourth best players on the Celtics team, but what they really are at the end of the day, they're both third overall picks. They are both guys that theoretically were drafted to be franchise players, to be the stud on the team. And it is important to recognize that Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, that is what they're capable of. And I think we've been seeing that a lot more, especially out of Jason Tatum. You're seeing him go into isolation more. You're seeing him create his own shots. You're seeing him really play an active role defensively as far as being able to limit offense on the transition for another team. He's really quick. Those are all things that teams have to look out for and take into account when playing the Celtics. And I think whether it's the Heat or the Bucks, I do think the Boston will be okay in that first round. Toronto, I think that they'll get a challenge from either one, but I also think that Toronto will certainly be okay. And then you look at the West, Portland finally clinched their playoff spot. Minnesota, New Orleans, kind of in danger. New Orleans is in the 8th spot right now. They're just a game into a playoff spot, and they've all of a sudden lost 4 in a row. So they're kind of in a tough position now. Denver's trying to work their way back in. The Clippers still 2 games out. My guess is that it will probably be the 8 teams that are in it right now to be the 8 teams that make the playoffs, but who knows? I'm not going to talk too much about hypothetical playoff matchups in the West because things can still shuffle around a whole lot, and I don't want to, go in depth and preview things that probably won't happen. So there's that. But either way, a lot of things going on in baseball, which I will probably transition to now. And it's been a very, very exciting opening weekend, first couple of games. Of course, as you know, I'm a Cubs fan, a little rough with that split series against the Miami Marlins. But I think overall, I don't think there's anybody that's disappointed with the way things have started in baseball this year. I think each team has kind of shown exciting characteristics. Of course, with the weird weather that's going on, no games in New York today. Those fields are covered with snow. But you look around, you look at every team having a lot of exciting things to watch. And I think particularly yesterday was really exciting, getting to see Shohei Ohtani make his debut on the mound, picked up the win, which was really cool. And he's only had 1 start in the lineup so far, but it'll be really interesting to see how that team pans out. I really like their lineup. I really like how they stack up defensively as well. Of course, Andrelton Simmons, Mike Trout, they have some of the best defenders in the game. The rotation is going to be a bit more of a question mark, but certainly going to be something that's fun to watch. Of course, also on that opening weekend, that crazy series between the Dodgers and the Giants, all of the shutouts that occurred there. Johnny Cueto taking a perfect game pretty deep. We're familiar with what the Houston Astros are capable of. They had a very loud and powerful opening weekend in Arlington, taking 3 of 4 from the Rangers. And then you have the Milwaukee Brewers, who swept the San Diego Padres to start off their season. They're looking to be a team that's looking to take that next step, hopefully to compete for a wild card spot for them. So that's something they're looking for. We actually have a couple games going on right now. Twins and the Pirates. Pirates starting off their season with 2 interleague series. They played the Tigers this weekend. They got Minnesota. They're up 5-0 right now in the second. Tigers and the Royals playing each other in their first matchup of the year. Kansas City, a 1-0 lead on Detroit. But a lot of baseball games going on today, but we already got 2 postponed. I don't think that any others, I should say, will be postponed. Although it will be 39 degrees in Cincinnati for the Cubs-Reds game that is supposed to start at 3:10 Central. So definitely a really, really exciting week. I'm not going to give too much insight. I'm not going to read too much into anything that happened throughout the first 3 to 4 games. I just think that's pretty redundant and useless in April. Kind of tough to see what's going on, but certainly a lot of encouraging starts for some teams. And the Chicago White Sox, too. I mean, they picked up 2 really nice wins over the Kansas City Royals. We're starting to see the offensive ability that team has, and I think it'll get more and more interesting as their younger players will get more opportunities. And I think having a full year of Yoan Moncada is really good for them, and I think as the season goes on and maybe we get to see a little bit of Lucas Giolito, maybe get to see a little bit of Max Kopech, that's what that fan base is waiting for. And I don't really think that this is going to be the year that the White Sox make some noise. I think that's more likely to be next year when their arms have a full year up. But I think that this is going to be a year for the Chicago White Sox to kind of prove that their younger guys can hang in there. And, they're going to need a lot of help and a lot of unexpected performances from their rotation and from their bullpen. But I think that lineup is one of the better ones in the American League, and I think that they're going to prove that on multiple occasions throughout the year. And I think, same thing can be said for the Boston Red Sox, who had a very potent lineup. They looked to start off really well. The Yankees would have liked to have, taken more than 2 of 4 against the Toronto Blue Jays. But, of course, we saw what Giancarlo Stanton did, hitting 2 homers in his Yankee debut, which shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. And I think it's just interesting to think of, like, what the over-under for homers on that Yankees team is going to be. I mean, just between Stanton, Judge, and Sanchez, I mean, if they are all healthy, you could be looking at, God knows how many from Judge and Stanton, and Gary Sanchez, somebody that's certainly capable of hitting 40 home runs in a season. So that'll, of course, be really, really fun and interesting to look for. Another thing to look for tonight, if you're really bored and have MLB.tv, watch Bartolo Colon at the Oakland Coliseum tonight, starting for the Texas Rangers. The 1-3 Rangers take on the 1-3 Oakland A's. The former Athletic Bartolo Colon, who actually had his career renaissance in Oakland, he'll be getting his first start of the year. That'll just be really cool to watch. He'll be turning 45, I think, in May. He's always fun to watch, no matter what. One of the league's most intriguing players. I think the craziest thing, I think I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I turned 22 yesterday. Bartolo Colon has been in the MLB since 1997. I was not even a year old when he debuted. And he started his career when he was already 24. So I think that really just kind of speaks to the prowess that this man has, that he's been able to just roll through all of his career and go through a lot of stages where many people, including myself, thought that it was over. And those were things that happened 6 or 7 years ago, and he's been able to be a serviceable MLB player for such a long time. And it certainly speaks volumes to the guy's dedication to baseball, which is always really cool to see. But a lot of good baseball games on today is certainly a good way to keep occupied and updated with everything that is going on. One more thing I want to talk about is just like kind of the format that I want to use for this channel. Of course, I'm just doing the episodes and talking about pretty much what's going on with baseball and basketball every day. I'm trying to think if I want to have some consistent format, if I want to continue making this something daily, or if it's going to be like a 5 time a week kind of deal. Another thing that I was thinking about doing, which is something that in the past I've thought about doing on my own several times, is maybe creating perhaps a separate channel, or at least part of this channel, just like a separate part of it, to do music reviews. It's something I've always really enjoyed and looking forward to potentially doing. So I might give that a shot. I'm not 100% sure, but if that's something that you'd want to see or hear, let me know. And I definitely make that separate from all the sports stuff, which is still the priority of it. But that would be something that I probably do on the side, not as often, but something that I'll probably update a couple times a week, do it just for fun. Just something to keep myself occupied, and I guess to show that there is something else that I do with my life other than look at stats and watch games. But there's plenty of that going on today. It is weird without there being NBA today, but of course the Michigan-Villanova National Championship. I don't have much of an opinion because I don't follow college basketball a whole lot, but that should be a very exciting game, very exciting tournament this year. I actually made a bracket. As you know, I go to Mizzou, and I made a bracket at the beginning before the tournament started. And I always pick a double-digit seed to go to the Final Four every year. So I knew that Loyola Chicago could shoot the 3, so I had them go into the Final Four. On the other side of the bracket, I had Villanova and I had Kansas, but I wasn't really making my bracket all that seriously. So in the other region, I have Mizzou going all the way. I'm like, yeah, I'll have Mizzou going to the Final Four. They're going to beat Loyola Chicago in the semifinals. And then, of course, it will be poetic. They'll play Kansas in the championship game, and they'll win it all. So obviously that didn't happen, but it was really cool to see my bracket get 3 of the Final 4 correct. That definitely felt good, but other than that, not too much else went right in my bracket. It was a really tough year for a lot of people, of course, with Virginia losing in the first round, being the first 1 seed to lose to a 16 seed. So that was really interesting and something that was just kind of bound to happen eventually. And it was really cool to see it happen this year. It was a really cool story. A lot of cool stories in the NCAA tournament every year. But I think that's the cool thing is that every year it's something unique. It's another program. It's a program that hasn't gotten a chance before, and they make a big difference. And this year, of course, with the whole story behind Loyola and with a lot of upsets happening in the early rounds, it was really cool to watch. And I think something that even people like me who don't really follow college basketball throughout the year outside of like the big draft prospects and end up just watching the tournament, I mean, that's something that ensures that people will come back to watch a tournament because it's really interesting. It's really fun to watch every year, and it's something that pretty much everybody can enjoy. Always going to be guaranteed to be exciting. But that is pretty much all I have for you today. Make sure to watch some baseball and, of course, national championship game tonight. Tomorrow we got a lot of NBA action, of course, a lot of MLB action, a whole lot going on tomorrow. So I think tomorrow we'll get a bit of a better image on what the NBA playoff picture is going to be like. And then, of course, once the NBA season is over, I'll be making separate videos previewing each of the playoff series. So that'll be something that, I'll try and put a lot of time and effort into doing. Give a good analysis and preview of each of the 8 playoff series. It's very exciting. Always just nerdily excited, if that's even a word, to watch the NBA playoffs. So it's really cool that is not that far away. And I'll certainly be making long series preview videos, looking at each one, kind of just giving my opinion of what direction I think things are headed for each team. And then, basically take a look at that more when the time comes. But other than that, this has been Pick and Pop with Peter Marzano. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow.